Hello children, and welcome to today's Bible story. We're going to be keeping with the story of Nehemiah today, and Snappy is going to help. Do you remember that Nehemiah was a food taster? In the Bible that's sometimes called a cup-bearer, and he worked for King Artaxerxes. Now this was to make sure that the king never ate or drank anything that was poisonous. I expect Snappy it was quite a dangerous job. But Nehemiah grew close to the king, and the king trusted him. Now Nehemiah was to be used greatly by God to rebuild the wall around the city of Jerusalem. It had been destroyed by the enemies of the people. Now a wall would keep the temple safe, and it will keep the people safe from their enemies too. You see, nobody in those times would want to live in a city that didn't have a nice strong wall around it. Now Snappy has been making a wall, haven't you, Snappy? For the Bible people. So let's have a look at Snappy's wall, shall we? Well, Snappy, it's not so much a wall as a robot. And I don't think we have any robots in our story. You see, Snappy, whenever you build anything, you have to have a plan. Now, in our story, we will see that when God wanted Nehemiah to build that wall, Nehemiah prayed to God, and then he made a careful plan. Here we see Nehemiah. He's working as a cupbearer for the king. He's one of God's people, and it's at a time when God's people have been taken away from their homes. Many are now returning, and God's temple has been rebuilt in Jerusalem. Nehemiah has a visitor who tells him that the walls of the city are ruined and the gates have all been burnt. This made Nehemiah very sad, and he prayed to God for help. King Artaxerxes wanted some wine, so Nehemiah brought wine to him. The king saw that Nehemiah was sad, and he'd never seen him sad before. Nehemiah told him he was sad because the city of his forefathers was in ruins, with its gates destroyed by fire. It wasn't just about the walls that kept people safe. The gates were very important too. They had wonderful names like Fish Gate, Sheep Gate, Fountain Gate and Valley Gate. And there were other gates too. But they all allowed people to come and go safely from all the corners of the city. "What do you want?" the king asked. And Nehemiah prayed to God. "Send me to the city in Judah, and I will rebuild it. Do this if you are willing, and I have pleased you." The queen was there too, and the king asked how long it would take, because he was happy to let Nehemiah go, and so Nehemiah set a time for his trip. So Nehemiah says, "I went to Jerusalem and stayed there for 3 days. Then at night I started out with a few men. I didn't tell anyone what God had caused me to do for Jerusalem, and there were no animals with me except the one I was riding. It was night. I went out through the valley gate, rode towards the dragon well and the rubbish gate. I was inspecting the walls of Jerusalem that had been broken down, and the gates had been destroyed by fire." Nehemiah continued inspecting the walls, but he didn't say anything to the priests and the important men or the officers. I had not said anything to any of the others who would do the work. Then I said to them, "You can see the trouble we have here. Jerusalem is a pile of ruins, and its gates have been burnt. Come, let's rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. Then we won't be full of shame any longer." I also told them how God had been kind to me. and I told them what the king had said to me. Then they answered, "Let's start rebuilding." And they began to work hard. But not everyone thought it was a good idea. There were some who laughed and made fun of them. And Zephaniah answered them, "The God of heaven will give us success, and we are God's servant, and we'll start rebuilding, but you have no share in Jerusalem. You have no claim or past right to it. So let's leave our Bible people here as they rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, and we'll see them again next week."